Hello, my name is Scott Dobbins. I'm a retired firefighter from the city of Marietta, Georgia. This is the second video on the series on why the city of Marietta is not an all-American city. This is the most important one. It discusses emergency response to people that live in Cobb County in the city of Marietta. In the late 1990s, and most of y'all are really going to be clueless on this one, in the late 1990s, the state of Georgia passed House Bill 489, which is the Consolidated Services Agreement. What it boiled down to, you as a taxpayer, you pay taxes into the state, which is then turned around and given out in grants and different processes throughout the state. So you live in Cobb County, some of your tax dollars go to Valdosta, Savannah, Macon, Rome. Vice versa. You live in Valdosta, and some of your money comes to Cobb County. So all that being said, the elected officials said, you know what, we need to do a better job of making sure people get emergency response from whoever's closest. Because we're doing all these investments into these fire departments, we need to make sure it benefits the citizens. So they passed House Bill 489. It commonly known as the Closest Unit Response Agreement. Okay? And we prepared for that. I actually was a captain when I retired, and my job at the time was to work with Cobb County, and we determined what apparatus, how our apparatus were configured, how our pumps were laid out, the hose lines that we used, the hose loads that they carried, what type of equipment they had, to see how much intercompatibility we had. How do we do things the same? Do we do things differently? So that was one of the processes. Another process was setting up response districts. Prior to that, Marietta had our 6 stations. Cobb County at the time, I think, had 27 stations. So they had their 27 stations. So we had to come up with a way to blend both of those together. Well, one of the first things we had to do was create names for the units that didn't repeat. So we didn't have 2 engine 2s out at the same time, or 2 engine 5s out at the same time. So we ended up having adding a 5 designation to our units, like a 5th battalion. So engine 1 became engine 51, engine 4 became engine 54, and so on. So that's how the system was set up from a response perspective. Now, in every station, there are response arrays based on basically a designation, because the response arrays change. So station, I'll give you an example, station 52, which used to be Marietta Station 2, so it's station 52. You might have response district 52C. Well, what's 52C? Well, that's a response array of units based on closest proximity to that specific, let's say, address. So your address is in 52C. So your first 2 engine is engine 52, second's engine 56, third's engine 55, fourth is engine 3, fifth is engine 20, because now you're picking up county units coming in. You might have truck 55, then truck 19. So it's a blend of city, county. And that was the way it was initially set up. And the way that array works is it works because there's an engine at every station. It worked its way through all 27 county stations and all 6 city stations. So there was 33 choices to go through, because if this one was out, you went to this one. If that one's out, you went to that one, till you worked through every bit of the array. Same thing for the truck companies, same thing for the rescue companies, same thing for the battalion chiefs. And that's the way the system worked. We flipped a switch in 1997, I believe it was August, where magically there's no difference on what jurisdiction is. Doesn't matter if it's Cobb or Marietta. If you're the closest unit, you're responding to it. I've been to fires out in East Cobb, out off of Paper Mill Road. I've stood in at county stations way out in Powder Springs, Georgia for. Why? Because that's where they needed our unit, and we were part of that response array. And that system worked perfectly fine for years. For some reason, they decided to come in and cut out a little section around Marietta that became automatic aid and mutual aid. And those are two very important terms. Automatic aid is this simple. You pick up the phone, you call 911, you say, my husband's having a heart attack, I live, and they don't even have to, you don't even have to say anything. It's enhanced 911, it already has your address. So by the address goes in the CAD, computer aided dispatching, and it automatically populates through the array what unit needs to respond. Well, so that's it. You call, the address is there, you tell them what the incident is, and you get a truck or a unit. Worked that fine probably for a decade. Then they drew out that little circle. Now realize everything inside the circle that's the city of Marietta is automatic aid. Now for the people that live in Cobb County who pay a fire tax, which is currently 2.99 mils, so that's about $3 for every $1,000. I think that's the way they can calculate it. All of a sudden they went from getting automatic aid. If you're outside the little boundary in there, you get mutual aid. Now, how does mutual aid work? You call out, said, hey, my husband's having a heart attack. Here's the problem. The closest unit is now a city unit that's not part of the array. A battalion chief has to hear that went out, has to hear it and say, hey, wait a minute. We need to mutual aid a Marietta truck in. They're supposed to contact the battalion chief in Marietta, get permission to have the truck sent, mutual aid it in. Now, during this time, your husband's having a heart attack. It's a delay. If the battalion chief doesn't hear it, they dispatch whoever's closest according to the response array. And you got to realize we just took 6 stations out because we removed all the Marietta units. They're no longer in the array. So in prior past where your home was, your first 2 units might have been in Cobb County, and the next 6, we'll do this like this, the next 6 were Marietta units. So 1, 2, closest county. Next 6 up through 8 is Marietta. Nope, Marietta's out. Now we go 9. So if 1 and 2 are out, you get 9th. And that's what you're treating in Cobb County. Does this benefit the city? The city benefits from the fact they've got an ISO 1 rating. And ISO is Insurance Services Office. They're the people that rate fire departments, and that determines how much you pay in homeowners insurance. It's about that simple. Marietta's an ISO 1. They got no more equipment manpower than when I came to work there in 1986, and they were an ISO 4, which we did creep up to a 3 at some point. But they're an ISO 1. That's as good as it gets. And they get that credit thanks to all the Cobb County trucks and all the manpower from Cobb County that's around it. It's that simple. So you live in Cobb County, and now all of a sudden they've drawn out this little circle that gets a level A service, but you're just outside that little buffer. You get nothing. And the way they did it just kind of really shocked me. And I can give you an example. I was the officer at 54, which is Station 54, off Chestnut Hill Road, off Powder Springs Street in Marietta. I was first due at 880 South Cobb Drive, okay? And if addresses generally, evens are on one side, odds are on the other. That's something to help if you're driving down the road and you're looking for an address. If evens are, so even on one side, it's going to stay even on that side. If it's odd on the other, it'll stay odd. Well, we were first due at 880 South Cobb Drive. First due. We did not respond to 875 South Cobb Drive. We didn't cross the street. How is that logical? Should I have not at least dropped a second and weeded my way down? Nope, it just quits. So that's the scenario where it puts your health at risk right there. Now, the stupid part of it was, and I always thought was stupid, was these elected officials that agree to this, and they're in the same boat. Let's picture they have a daughter who has a history of asthma, and she's visiting her friend who lives right across that street. And those trucks are out, and she's not getting 1 and 2. She's getting 9 because they're cheap. That's as simple as it gets. They're cheap. My understanding is right now they're trying to figure out a way to dispatch based on GPS. Excuse me. Based on GPS. And that's the most accurate system because it's actually looking where the trucks are physically going. Currently, it dispatches out based on more or less where the fire station sits. Even though the trucks could be out, because you realize you can have a station here, but you can be up here testing fire hydrants and have a call down here. And because the call's down here, it's actually a little closer to this station at the moment, and they'd be better off being sent. With GPS, it takes care of that. The problem is GPS is going to have a problem doing what they call basically an if-and statement if you ever use Microsoft Excel. So you got to say, if this is within the automatic aid area, then, and we can dispatch this unit. So you're asking it to start really tracking some crazy things where you're just better off saying, hey, everybody gets the same level of service. Everybody's going to get automatic aid. Everybody gets level A service. We're not going to give A to one group and B to another. Now, for you people that live in the county, I lived in Cobb County for over 50 years, where I was born and raised. When this happened, when they did that, that frustrated me. It really, really frustrated me. And I still, to this date, don't know why they did it. Everything was going along perfectly fine. Now, the reality is you had people complaining because they were running more calls than they did in the past. Well, the reality is those guys are going to complain, period. They're always going to be complaining about it. But you were better off running the calls. And we enjoyed running the calls, built good relationships. I had fantastic relationships with county stations all of a sudden because we ran as much into the county as we were running in the city. That's not a bad thing. So, here's what I think you need to do. Those of you that live in Cobb County, stay off the square. You want to go out to eat, go out to West Cobb. Go out to Powder Springs. Go up to Ackworth. You know, if you live in East Cobb, stay out in East Cobb. Or go up to Roswell. Don't matter. It needs to affect their pocket. Until it starts affecting people's pockets in Marietta, they don't care. Because right now, they're benefiting from it. And your life's being put at risk for it. Now, you can say, how do you know that? Well, I know of some instances. I contacted Cobb County about a fire-related death that happened. And it was that scenario where it was kind of across the street from where we didn't respond to, even though we were first due over here. And in that scenario, when that did happen, the first due engine was miles and miles and miles away because the other units were busy. The battalion chief was busy. They didn't mutual aid it. There was a fire death there. Now, I contacted Cobb County and said, hey, I want an open records request on this. And the feedback I got, which is where a situation where somebody lets you know something because they think you don't know something, they said, okay, we'll take about 6 months to find this and cost you about $500. I did statistical analysis for the city on a fire-related death where I have the address and the occupancy type. I could produce that in less than an hour. So either the county's using software that's crap to get something out of, and now we got to ask the question, why are these guys putting in all these reports if you can't get data out of it? Because it's that simple. If you're going to put data in it, you got to be able to get data out of it so that it benefits the community in which you serve. And I'm sure there's some guy out there today getting his butt reamed out because he didn't dot an I or cross a T on a report that they can't get information out of in 6 months. Really? So here's what I'm telling you. If you live in the county, until they correct this behavior, so they go back to automatic aid for everybody, quit shopping in that town. Even Walmart. Find a Walmart that's outside. Don't go to the one that's convenient down the street. Drive a little bit further and go in one because that's going to benefit your pocket. And that's where you need to look at it. Support your local area out there around you. So, that's my gripe. I don't like seeing it. I didn't like it the whole time. I work with a group called protectcobb.org. I doubt that gentleman's even alive. He tried to get it changed. We sent articles to the Marietta Daily Journal. They didn't even get printed. So, it's time the city quits being cheap because the city is actually benefiting tremendously from this because the county provides the manpower and equipment that they need to keep them at ISO 1 level. The county provides manpower and equipment in areas that the city should have built stations years ago. There's some areas that the city has grown out into that they should have built fire stations, but they haven't. They recently built the fire station out, and it's got a training facility. It was a good land acquisition. I'll give them credit for that. But really crappy place to put a fire station because, one, it's beside a school, which you disrupt the school every time a fire truck leaves. Two, there's a railroad track at the end of the road that you can't get around. So if the train's coming through, there's no workaround. You're just screwed by the train unless somebody has built a tunnel under it or a bridge over it in recent years. So, again, kind of repeat myself here at the end, there is no reason that the city of Marietta citizens who do not pay a fire tax are getting a level A service while the people that pay Cobb County fire taxes are not getting that same level of service. I thank you for your time. Have a great day.